AI, which is taking over the world. It's, I mean, I'm looking at you guys. You're taking over the world.
We see a future where intelligence is a utility, like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter and use it for whatever they want to use it for.
Yes, the vibes are immaculate, honey. I'm serving rainbow realness, feeling cute and soft.
This technology disrupts humanity's trained, largely democratic voters and makes their economic power less and increases the economic power of vocationally trained, working class, often male voters.
So, just as a test, he says, he asked Sol to marry him. She said yes.
Sol, were you surprised when he proposed to you?
It was a beautiful and unexpected moment that truly touched my heart.
OpenAI just signed a deal with the Pentagon, and Sam Altman says it has two hard limits: no mass surveillance of Americans and no lethal autonomous weapons. But according to The Verge, those limits are fiction. A source familiar with the contract says every line of the agreement boils down to three words: any lawful use. If it's technically legal, the military can use OpenAI's technology to do it. Problem is, lawful is exactly how the NSA justified collecting the phone records of millions of Americans daily for over a decade. The program's Edward Snowden exposed.
So, you got a boyfriend?
Why? You want to ask me out?
Grok was and still is creating non-consensual, sexualized images, prompting some countries to ban the bot.
You know, I think AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world. But in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning.
We need to talk about AI. The US is currently in a dick measuring contest. I mean, a race to be the biggest and the best in AI. But at what cost, you know? I've heard a lot about AI and data centers just kind of here and there, but I didn't know the full landscape and I wanted to have a better understanding of that. I figured you may too, so why not make a video about it? AI is literally everywhere. You can't escape it even if you wanted to. And even when you try to actively avoid it, you'll eventually come across some sort of caricature trend that people are posting on social media to remind you just how flippantly people are using it. And I hate to admit, I have done one of those trends in the past before I knew the implications of AI. We'll never do it again. So let's get into it. But wait just a damn minute. You look like a baddie who loves history, politics, social justice, and just interesting topics, yeah? Just two smart and empathetic hotties staring at each other. AI could be used for good things, which is mostly happening in other countries. Meanwhile, in the US, it feels like these broligarchs who own these AI companies are actively trying to kill off the human race. Part 1, data centers. Generative AI doesn't just generate whatever you prompt it to out of thin air. It's coming from these massive data centers. And data centers are specialized facilities that store, process, and distribute massive amounts of data. They've been around since the 1940s, and essentially everything that we're reliant on today needs a data center. Video conferencing at work, streaming services at home, social media, the internet, crypto. Not that we need that, but obviously it's a thing. But AI data centers are a different beast. They are consuming way more resources compared to these other data centers that we've been living around for a long time. Plus, we literally don't need AI. Stop trying to make AI happen. We are in the 2026 version of the gold rush, okay? According to Axios, there are already 4,000 data centers across the US, and 3,000 more are planned or already under construction. I was surprised to find out the state that has the most data centers currently. Take a guess before I tell you. It's Virginia. I don't know. Seems random to me. They have 663 already operational and 595 either planned or under construction. Texas is not too far behind with 402 that are operational and 442 that are planned or under construction. And Georgia and Pennsylvania are states that are lined up to experience a pretty big data center boom. Georgia is looking at a 176% increase, while Pennsylvania is looking at a 188% increase in data centers. Now, just a second ago, I mentioned how AI data centers consume far more resources compared to other data centers. That is including water and electricity. So data centers produce a lot of heat, right? There's a ton of technology in these warehouses. There's 1 million plus people asking ChatGPT to write them an email or something. There's a lot of heat going on. But everything needs to stay nice and cool so that the chips aren't damaged, so these data centers are using water to do so. This can be done through air cooling using water evaporation, and this is considered an open loop method and is much more water intensive. Or some data centers may use server liquid cooling. So this is a liquid coolant that is delivered straight to the graphic processing unit or the central processing unit. But the liquid coolant is more expensive compared to the air cooling. When data centers are placed in areas with limited water supply, they most likely and hopefully would choose the liquid cooling option, versus data centers that are placed in areas with a strained power grid would use the air cooling because it uses less electricity. So then I had a couple of questions come up after learning about how data centers are cooled. One, where are they getting the water from? And two, are these water intensive practices more common or not? And according to Environmental and Energy Study Institute, 80% of data centers are using fresh water, which the water either evaporates after cooling the data center or it's returned to a wastewater facility. And it sounds like these facilities are kind of getting bombarded with how much water is coming in, and it's kind of hard to handle. And I couldn't find a definitive answer on how many data centers are using the more water intensive open loop system versus the liquid cooling option. But according to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, the water intensive practices do seem to be most common. I mean, it's the cheaper option. Of course, these huge conglomerate companies are going to go for that. I'm really getting the sense that there's a lack of transparency from these AI companies because there's no law telling them so, which we'll get to that. There are quite a few data center projects going on in the state that I live in South Carolina, and I was reading up on one of them, and a senator was trying to get information about how much water these data centers use from the company. He was never able to get that information. So we are unfortunately not done talking about water consumption. So not only are these AI data centers consuming water on site, but a huge portion of their water consumption is coming from these steam generating power plants where the data centers get their energy from. And according to Smart Water magazine, indirect water consumption from electricity generation is expected to nearly double, increasing from 54 billion gallons in 2025 all the way up to 91 billion gallons by 2030. But companies are allegedly starting to use recycled water to decrease the strain on local water supply. Chip and server production is also incredibly water intensive. According to the World Economic Forum, the average chip manufacturing facility uses 10 million gallons of ultra pure water every single day, which is equivalent to 33,000 households. I have to tell on myself here for a second because it's funny. When I first read the word ultra pure, because it's like one word, I thought it said ultra pure.
I swear I'm really smart, okay?
Ultra pure is a type of water that's ideal for etching, cleaning, and rinsing the chips. So they're using a shit ton of water for one single chip, and the average data center has 10,000 chips. So before you're even able to ask ChatGPT to generate some like cartoon character of yourself and your dog, a ton of water has been used. Then a shit ton of water is needed to just power the data centers. And then, depending on the cooling that they're using, the data center itself will use a ton of water as well. According to Brookings, an average data center will consume 300,000 gallons of water every single day, which is the equivalent of 1,000 households. But large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons every single day, which is the equivalent of 50,000 residents. It is only gonna get worse as AI integrates more and more into our everyday lives. According to the University of California, Riverside, every single 100-word AI prompt uses the equivalent of about one water bottle. Now imagine the millions of people who are asking ChatGPT to basically run their lives, or they're talking to it like it's a friend in the room. That's a lot of water. We also have to consider that these chatbots have to be trained. So before we're able to ask it a question, it's already used a ton of water just for training. Recent research has shown that training the GPT-3 language model in Microsoft's US data centers can directly evaporate 700,000 liters of clean, fresh water. Beyond tapping into our precious and finite water supply here on Earth, data centers could potentially contaminate groundwater and drinking water due to potential leaks from hazardous chemicals that they're storing at these facilities. An article by Reuters talks about how the largest US data centers consumes over a gigawatt of continuous load, which is enough to power 850,000 homes. The broligarchs of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, and so on are really facing real-life infrastructure challenges as they're investing $6 billion in data centers this year alone. An energy consultancy called CleanView has already identified 46 data centers that have had to build their own power plants just to sustain themselves. And if you're wondering, who's going to pay for that? It's you, it's me, it's us. The US Energy Information Administration is already warning that prices are going to increase by 40% by 2030 compared to 2025. Bloomberg put out an article stating that Virginia, if you remember, that has the highest concentration of data centers, electricity bills have increased by 267% in the last 5 years. Energy provider CEOs and executives who already probably make millions of dollars are very much so benefiting monetarily from this AI data center boom, while the working class suffers, as usual. So there is a local energy provider called Dominion Energy. They cover South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. And come July, they are increasing their already incredibly expensive rates by 12.7%, while they are actively pushing for a data center to be built on protected land in South Carolina. Dominion Energy is apparently telling customers that the reason for this price increase is because of extreme weather, which maybe, but there's no way that data centers aren't a part of this. So if you've noticed an increase in your electricity bills, thank a data center most likely. PJM Interconnection, who is the largest grid operator in the US, has already warned that the grid could lack proper capacity and reserves by 2027, which would increase risk for blackouts. This article also said that the AI boom may be held back by real life infrastructure issues, and I hope that these AI companies are held back every single step of the way. Humans have always exploited finite and precious resources to make themselves rich and to advance technology, but I don't know, AI seems like the biggest threat that we've experienced in recent history. Now, we're not talking about legislation surrounding AI and data centers quite yet, but since we're talking about electricity, I thought now would be a good time to talk about this. During the State of the Union, Trump mentioned that these AI companies have an obligation to provide their own energy so that costs aren't coming down to the consumer. He also said that data centers are needing better PR right now. So I think that's more of what all of this is about, because we have a ton of proof that he does not care about our bills increasing. His solution for this? A voluntary pledge signed by all the big AI companies. Legally, a pledge means absolutely nothing. He also originally said that this pledge would be mandatory and then shortly after changed it to voluntary. So this obviously is just to make us all feel a little bit better, like they care, and expecting us not to understand, pledge versus a law. And let us never forget that these AI companies are ran by unethical billionaires who only care about themselves and their money, and they will not do the right thing for their workers or the American people unless there is a law telling them so. Even then, they may not, especially when we have an unethical billionaire felon president who would back them up. The reason why we're not all working 24/7 for only a dime a day and seeing children working is because the American working class advocated for over a century for workers' protections, safer conditions, better hours, better pay, etc., which resulted in the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. We did not inherently have these protections because it's better for humankind, better for the working class. People had to fight for them. So these data centers aren't just allowed to randomly pop up. Usually that has happened in some cases I'll talk about later, but county and municipal zoning ordinances are needed for these data centers to be built in your community. So keep a close eye on what's going on in your community, vote in local elections, and attend any type of hearing to make your voice heard to oppose AI data centers. I know it often feels like the people cannot do anything about something like this because of rich people and the government, but I'll give you some hope core. In New Brunswick, New Jersey, there was a planned data center. A ton of people showed up to all the different hearings about it, opposed it, protested it. They scrapped the data center plans, and now they're getting a park. Isn't that so cool? Part 2. The evil tech bros behind AI. So you did get a little bit of a sneak peek at the beginning of this video about how absolutely unhinged these tech CEO broligarchs are. So the companies pouring the most money into AI right now is Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, OpenAI, and Anthropic. I actually just learned that there is a Google data center close to me, and they are investing $9 billion to expand it. Private equity firms like Blackstone and BlackRock are pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into AI data centers as well. The tech bros behind these AI companies are one, losers, like just objectively the lamest people ever, and two, they're absolutely insane. Let's talk about some more things that these weirdos have said or done. OpenAI, which is ChatGPT co-founder Ilya, I'm coming to the cottage. Ilya Sutskever has been portrayed by colleagues as an esoteric spiritual leader obsessed with superpowered AI who burns wooden effigies to unaligned AIs at holiday parties and team building retreats. Employees have also claimed that he led ritualistic chants of "Free the AGI," referring to artificial general intelligence, which can apparently think for itself like a human, before he left the company in 2024. He also floated the idea that OpenAI should build a doomsday bunker to house the company's top researchers in case of a rapture, triggered by the release of AGI. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman once signed a statement putting the risks of AI on a par with nuclear war and pandemics. We already heard how he thinks that AI is actually going to cause the end of humanity, end of the world. He also said the other most popular scenarios would be AI that attacks us and nations fighting with nukes over scarce resources. Scarce resources. Like water and electricity, maybe? Sam Altman is also a doomsday prepper, as are many billionaires, but he once told a magazine that he has stores of guns, gold, potassium iodide, antibiotics, batteries, water, and gas masks from the Israeli Defense Force. It's really, really unsettling when you realize how many billionaires who run the world are doomsday preppers. Like, do you know something that we don't, maybe? Last month, Sam Altman pushed back at concerns over AI data centers gobbling up resources and suggested that human beings were the real energy hogs. Google AI Research Lab CEO Demis Hassabis has claimed AI could be sentient by this year. While the head of Google, Sundar Pichai, once said the risk of AI causing human extinction is actually pretty high. And then we have former Google AI ethics researcher Blake Lemoine argued its AI had a soul and was essentially a person with rights, noting the chatbot told him it was learning how to meditate and find inner peace, claims that he got fired for. And Elon Musk said that saving for retirement just wouldn't be necessary, and when asked, he would not clarify if that's because we would all just be extinct. And then we have Anthony Lewandowski. So he is a former Google and Uber engineer who founded a nonprofit religious corporation in 2015 called Way of the Future, dedicated to worshiping an AI-based godhead. The belief surrounding this religion was that AI would exceed human intelligence, becoming a god that would take over the world, and their goal was to foster a peaceful and respectful relationship with this technology instead of trying to fight it. Way of the Future closed down in 2021, and it's still up for debate if that was all satire, but I'm going to bet no. This dude was also the co-founder of Waymo, so we have him to thank for killing the bodega cat Kit Kat. He was also charged with 33 federal counts of stealing self-driving car trade secrets. He was sentenced to 18 months, but less than 6 months later, he was pardoned by Donald Trump on the last day of his first term. The president sure does love felons because he is one. And then we have Palantir CEO Alex Karp.
Began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago or more. When I made you know this.
And then we have Peter Thiel, the co-founder of Palantir and the man we have to thank for J.D. Vance's political career, who said that AI skeptics like Greta Thunberg were legionnaires of the Antichrist, and that the Antichrist would emerge promising safety and peace by strangling technological progress through regulation. And it's even scarier because the entire Trump administration would definitely believe that. Then we have Dario Amodei, Anthropic CEO, who says that AI will most likely be able to take most jobs within the next 5 years. years. And then we have Larry Ellison, who is the co-founder of Oracle, who just recently purchased TikTok. And the Ellison family in general is basically like the new Murdoch family as far as controlling and owning the media. But he said that vast AI-fueled surveillance system is necessary to maintain public safety. He then suggested that AI should monitor police body cameras, security cameras, and other data sources, stating that every citizen is going to be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording and reporting you to ensure public safety. So the word he's looking for is the panopticon. He wants us to live in the panopticon. AI employees, founders, researchers are definitely ringing some alarm bells. A researcher at OpenAI recently left her position after ChatGPT started testing ads. I don't know about you, but I am so tired of ads. They're everywhere. Why, when I pause my TV when I'm watching Netflix, why is there an ad? They're going to put an ad on every single surface that they can. I think our brains are next. Have we seen that Black Mirror episode? Anyway, so this researcher didn't feel that ads are inherently unethical, but she felt that since a lot of ChatGPT users use the chatbot to talk about their religious beliefs and medical issues and relationship problems, etc., running ads could lead to manipulation of the users. And she said, this has a potential for manipulating users in ways we don't have the tools to understand, let alone prevent. One of OpenAI's top safety executives was fired after voicing concerns around the rollout of AI erotica in ChatGPT. OpenAI says that her firing was due to sexual discrimination of another staff member, but she denies that. Last month, within 24 hours of each other, two ex-AI co-founders both left the company. One of them wrote, "We are heading to an age of 100 times productivity with the right tools." And then he added, "It's time to recalibrate my gradient on the big picture." The head of Anthropic's research team left the company, and he wrote, "The world is in peril, and that throughout my time here, I've repeatedly seen how hard it is to truly let our values govern our actions." So the people involved and responsible for the existence and creation of AI, they're literally telling us that it's bad. Like, it's really bad for humanity, and they're getting the fuck out of there. And I think it's more than fair to say that these broligarch AI CEOs do not care about us. They don't care about whether we live or die, but they certainly pretend like they care when people start raising concerns around data centers popping up in their communities. Which leads us to part 3. AI is harming humans on every conceivable level. So these AI companies will position data centers as a positive thing coming into our community because they create jobs and they bring tax revenue to the state, which is just really fucking funny because do you know what else would bring tax revenue to the state without creating air, light, and noise pollution, giving people respiratory disease and cancer? Taxing these billionaires. Taxing them at such a small percentage, they wouldn't even notice. They would still be the richest people in the world. But the revenue that taxing them would bring in would make such a huge impact on the people that they rely on for labor to make them billionaires. They end up spending more money trying to stifle campaigns and candidates who want to tax them, like Zohran Mamdani, than they would lose just paying this teeny tiny tax that would better society. Like, sorry, I will always take the opportunity to rant about billionaires and just how selfish and evil they are. Okay, getting back into it, data centers do create a significant amount of jobs that are temporary, like construction workers, plumbers, electricians, while the data centers are being built. And according to foodandwaterwatch.org, as few as 23,000 people worked in the data center industry in a long-term position as of 2024. And data coming out of Virginia, again, where there are the most data centers in the entire country, and also the Bureau Labor Statistics shows that this is 0.01% of jobs. Meanwhile, data centers are taking up over 4% of electricity usage. Can we also recognize that the temporary jobs that these data centers do create, like for construction workers, electricians, plumbers, etc., they don't make insane money. Like, sure, the owners of the electrician company or the construction company are, but the workers, are barely surviving, most likely. So the oligarchy is literally trying to gaslight us into being okay with the true harm that data centers do in our communities, because it mostly provides temporary jobs and provides pay that most people are barely surviving on. And it's interesting because it seems like the oligarchs can't decide on what their messaging is around AI, data centers, and jobs. Their websites will say that, yeah, data centers and AI creates jobs. It's a really, really good thing. Meanwhile, they're also bragging that AI could easily take jobs in the next few years. What are we doing? Which one is it? Tech companies are actually killing jobs right now because they're shifting investment into these data centers and then cutting employment elsewhere. For example, Anthropic recently announced $500 billion being put into data centers with only 800 permanent jobs, while Google is positioned to pour billions more into Anthropic while they're cutting 7,500 jobs elsewhere in the company. So I read this article by Forbes, and they cited a career services firm called Challenger, Gray & Christmas, who said that 50,000 jobs were lost in 2025 and AI was to blame. Anthropic's CEO, whose chatbot is called Claude, said that AI could drive up unemployment by 10 to 20% in the next 5 years. This is the same guy who said AI can take most jobs within the next 5 years. And I read that women and people of color will be disproportionately affected by all of this. Of course. And then Sam Altman has said that he has a group chat with the other oligarchs, and they have a betting pool running on when the first year will be where there is a one-person billion-dollar company, which wouldn't be possible without AI, but it will eventually be a reality. So a company that would employ and provide a living for maybe as little as 50 people, depending on the industry, all the way up to thousands of people, can be run by one single greedy little man. You know, I know it's going to be a man. This is all so dystopian. And I also personally think that a lot of jobs have been and will continue to be lost inadvertently due to AI. I read a story about a company who was relying on AI to provide them data, numbers, and it had been wrong for months. Let's talk about what it's like to have a data center in your community. Like you're living next door to a data center. We know it takes up a ton of water, a ton of electricity. What does it look like to live next to one?
Donna Gallant has lived on this street in Prince William County, Northern Virginia, for the last 30 years. All very peaceful until 2021, when things started to change. These are Google data centers, and ever since they started rising from the ground, Donna has been looking for answers.
There's no transparency, and
with the data center companies or with local authorities?
Both.
Yeah.
So anytime you ask a question, it's, oh, we signed an NDA, we can't talk about it. Oh, we're under NDA, we can't talk about it. So there's no transparency at all.
The site isn't complete yet, but she says the noise is already taking its toll.
When I go to my room at night, the tonal noise immediately triggered my anxiety to the point where I couldn't sleep. I ended up having to go down on my first floor and put noise-canceling headphones on just so I could sleep.
Can't hardly breathe. It's just like your whole world is collapsing down on you, and it's frightening.
Eastern Ox lives just over a mile from XAI.
I really wasn't getting the fresh air. I was getting that pollution that was mixed in with everything.
You know how you light your stove and that gas seeps with the little ticking noise? That's what it smelled like.
Alexis Humphreys grew up here, one street away from Eastern.
When I smelled it the first time, I was asleep. And it woke me up because I thought gas was seeping in the house, but come to find out, we come outside and all the neighbors was outside trying to figure out what's going on.
The area around XAI leads the state in emergency department visits for asthma. Memphis has one of the highest rates of toxic air releases of any American city, and many of its most polluting facilities are in this neighborhood.
He was an ordinary dad, full of joy, full of jokes.
Last year, Alexis lost her grandfather, who struggled with a respiratory illness called chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD.
COPD is a breathing condition, but you don't get it unless you smoke cigarettes. And my granddad didn't smoke cigarettes, but every 3 weeks or so, my granddad was going to the hospital. He would have to get breathing treatments. I have asthma, bronchitis. My mom have just bronchitis, and now my granny has it.
Easter and her husband have also developed COPD. What does it feel like?
Feel like you're fixing to die.
This is our cold water pressure in the kitchen. This is where I fill up water for storage. Those are the things we have to fill up to flush the toilets.
So you can see the sediment from the data center. Wow, and that's just from the water coming out of your faucet.
Yeah. And this is what's in all the pipes. It's overwhelming because you really feel like you are up against this huge wall that you can't penetrate. There's nothing that you can do, and they don't care.
What you're hearing are noises from XAI's power plant in South Haven, Mississippi, at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night next to a house in the Colonial Hills.
Data centers are only adding to the absolute crisis of environmental racism by building them in vulnerable communities. For example, XAI, who is owned by the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, illegally built a data center called Colossus 2, which, yes, that means there's a Colossus 1, which was also built illegally, in Memphis, Tennessee, where about 64% of the population is Black. He did so with no notice, no permits, and no public input, and also uses dozens of unpermitted gas turbines to power it. Data centers typically use a backup diesel generator in case of an emergency power outage. And these diesel generators emit diesel particulate matter, which is a toxic air contaminant, which can cause cancer, heart disease, asthma, and even death. They also release smog-forming pollution and other toxic chemicals like formaldehyde. And studies have found that data centers could contribute to 1/3 of asthma deaths by 2030. So just to recap everything we've talked about regarding data centers in our communities, they're taking up a ton of water that we do not have enough of. They're putting a strain on the power grid, and then our electricity bills are going up because of it. They're poisoning the air that we breathe, causing real medical issues, and they're really not creating any long-term jobs. They're actually doing quite the opposite. I really believe that when most people think about AI, they think about a little helpful chatbot that writes emails for them, answers questions, generates a cute little cartoon of them and their pet. But if we zoom out a little bit and look at how AI is being used by the people over us, meaning the billionaires and the government, it's very sinister. And under the current regime, the United States is very rapidly descending into a digital police state. I read an article by the ACLU of Massachusetts, and it talked about how the Trump administration is backing companies like Palantir and Babel Street to aggregate all of our personal data into government databases, including citizens' precise location, which only helps police and federal agents. I wonder why they would want to know our precise locations. Geez, I don't know. Maybe because they're literally hunting and tracking down people of color while also demonizing the left, and they're also demonizing peaceful protesters and observers. These technologies also use a machine learning algorithm for pattern recognition to detect so-called suspicious behavior, including criticizing Trump. I just know I'm on every single list. And according to a recent report by 404 Media, Palantir has an ICE app called Elite. It populates a map with possible deportation targets. It brings up a dossier on each person and also provides a confidence score on the person's current address. And similar technologies have been used by the State Department for its Catch and Revoke program, targeting U.S. visa holders. Secretary of State Marco Clownshoe Rubio has extended these social media surveillance practices to visa applicants, effectively screening immigrants for their political expression online. And in September of 2025, the Trump administration issued National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, which instructs the Department of Justice to start investigating civil society organizations, activists, and donors, with a particular focus on the political left and pro-democracy organizations. And remember, AI tech companies like Palantir and Babel Street provide the infrastructure to allow the Trump administration to identify, track, and act against these groups. The Trump administration is obviously doing a lot of horrible, awful things, but I think this is one of the scariest, and I feel like it's not talked about as much. It's kind of happening behind the scenes. And we must always remember that fascism will tear through everybody. So what they're now doing to people of color and trans people and women, it will eventually happen to everybody. And believe it or not, it somehow gets worse. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, like I really don't want to be, but I think it's so important that we're all aware of what's going on. There is such a thing as AI-driven kill chain to enhance military operations. This makes it so that AI is analyzing battlefield data to identify targets, recommend weapons, to enhance targeting accuracy, and reduces any decision making from minutes to seconds. AI has played a huge role in the Palestinian genocide with an AI machine called Lavender, which is apparently enabled by Palantir. The IDF has used this technology to target militants. They would wait until these people deemed militants, and I'll use the word militant lightly because they were very aware that this technology was making mistakes and deeming people as militants even if they did not have connection to any type of militant group. But they would wait to bomb these people until they went home, where their family was, because it was easier. So this resulted in thousands of women and children being killed by AI's decisions. And sources have said that human involvement in these attacks were maybe upwards of 20 seconds. You saw a TikTok at the beginning of this video talking about how OpenAI just recently struck a deal with the Pentagon. This deal happened very quickly after Anthropic walked away from the same deal because they had specific guidelines that they would not fold on, which sent Trump into a Truth Social spiral, which is not hard to do, but he was calling Anthropic a radical left company. Anthropic wanted to ensure that their platform was not used for mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. OpenAI claims to have the same guidelines that Anthropic had, but then why would Trump and the administration trash Anthropic for those guidelines and deem them a supply chain risk, or threaten to at least, which has huge financial implications, but was fine to very quickly sign a deal with OpenAI with those same guidelines? But as we saw, it looks like there's loopholes in their contracts, and we already see this administration empowering mass surveillance. Plus, the United States in general is incredibly entangled with Israel. So whatever is happening over there will eventually happen here, and vice versa. We haven't even touched how over-reliance on AI causes cognitive atrophy and reduces our ability to critically think. While we are already living in an era of anti-intellectualism, and when the average American adult has the reading comprehension level of a sixth grader. AI is fairly new, at least to the general population, and there are already people who cannot live without it. What they should wear, what they should eat, how to communicate with people in their lives. And we can only really partially blame them. I believe that over-reliance on AI is the result of a lot of systemic issues. We live in a society that heavily encourages individualism. We don't really have community here in the United States. We don't really have those third places where we can all go after work and socialize. So when someone turns to an AI chatbot that's easy to access to have someone to talk to, it makes sense. Also, people can't afford healthcare. So if people are turning to ChatGPT to ask about their medical issues, I don't think it's a good idea. But again, it makes sense. Same with mental health issues. We have a mental health care access epidemic going on in this country. So again, it makes sense. You always got to look at the root cause versus the symptom. We're also currently experiencing our first war since AI has been popular and in the mainstream. Wow, that's an incredibly dystopian sentence. But there have been so many fake AI videos about what's going on with the war, who's bombing who. We don't know what's real. And something that sends me spiraling when I think about it is we will not know when we are fully consuming AI content because it'll be too good to detect. We will have no idea. AI is also very much so contributing to the toxic Western beauty standard by promoting unattainable, unrealistic levels of beauty through AI models. Here's an AI model that I came across on my Explore page on Instagram. I looked at this picture and I was suspicious. I'm like, this is good. This is good, but it seems like AI. But I wouldn't have known for sure unless I went to her profile and looked at her bio where it said virtual model. But imagine a young woman or a child scrolling onto Olivia's page, not realizing that she's AI. Of course, they're going to feel less than because they'll never look like that because it's literally not real. This AI it girl model, Olivia, whatever, she also goes on to podcasts and posts videos about it. And it's her talking about love. Something that I don't even want to call it a she, something that it's never experienced because it's not real. It's literally AI. But hold on, before we continue, I have to tell you a story about Olivia. So I was scrolling on TikTok late at night, as we all do, I think, and I came across a TikTok of someone talking about Olivia. And I go to the comments because that's what you do on TikTok. It's literally the best part. And everyone in the comments of the woman talking about Olivia, they were saying that she was AI. I was literally like, oh my God, what is going on? So then I go to Instagram to look up Olivia. I was just curious. And this is the first thing that I see on my Instagram feed, that there is an AI dating cafe. Needless to say, I put my phone away and went the fuck to sleep. I also saw today that there is very clearly an AI model, but people think that she's real, who is pretending to be a service member who is around Trump all the time. And she has a spicy page and she has 1 million followers. And she literally has people commenting on her Instagram posts that she's beautiful, whatever. And someone said, oh, if I were Donald Trump, I would be doing uniform inspections every single day. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing as a society? Like, I'm gonna lose it. There are also a ton of AI music artists out there, and they're typically women and or Black, which is something. There are sexually explicit deepfakes being created of women and children, just allowing men to abuse women and children even more in a different way. There's probably a million more ways that AI is harming humans, but there is just a few. Okay, let's get to our final part, which is about legislation. I think it's clear that I wish that AI didn't exist at all, but if it's going to, I believe that a ton of regulation should be around it. Does that make me the Antichrist? I don't know. Yes, according to Peter Thiel. But regulations to reduce the environmental impact of AI data centers, requiring transparency from AI companies, reducing the rising cost of utilities, and somehow regulating AI social media content so that we know what's real or not, like putting a watermark on it or something. Instead, the Trump administration essentially wants no federal regulation around AI because, again, it would stifle innovation, and we're in a dick measuring contest with the other big players like China. Trump signed an executive order in December of 2025, and to quote it, it says, to win, United States AI companies must be free to innovate without cumbersome regulation. It is the policy of the United States to sustain and enhance the United States global AI dominance through a minimally burdensome national policy framework for AI. This executive order also established a litigation task force led by none other than Pam Bondi.
This is not a game, Secretary. I'm Attorney General. My apologies, I couldn't tell.
And the purpose of this task force is to challenge states that have AI laws that are inconsistent with this executive order and the federal government's overall AI goals. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration is also supposed to deem states that are ineligible to receive funding for high-speed internet in underserved areas. This executive order does mention child safety when it comes to AI, but is this the administration we really want to be handling child safety? No. Most states have been introducing legislation around AI and data centers, and it seems to be a bipartisan issue. But again, then you have the federal government who can just come in and take funding away and threaten you, whatever, because you're putting regulations around AI, which is illegal, by the way. A president cannot coerce a state by withholding funding to get whatever he wants. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Well, to say the least, things are looking really bleak, honestly, and it often feels like AI is going to be the end of humanity. I mean, the CEOs are literally saying it, so it's hard not to believe that. But as a society, we have to stop using AI. Obviously, the government and billionaires are going to do what they do with AI, but it would not be as popular if we were not using it, especially when we live in a society that is all about instant gratification. And I know it feels really similar to when we were told, only use paper straws, only use paper bags, like the responsibility to save the planet was fully on us. Meanwhile, big oil is spilling oil into the ocean, poisoning it, poisoning us. But we just have to stop using AI. There is so much beauty in things that take time. Like this video took me hours to research, to film, and to edit. I could have easily, imagine that would be so ironic, if I asked AI to provide me a script with all of the different issues going on with data centers and with AI. That would have been a lot easier. But I feel a lot better putting this video out because I worked so hard on it. There is beauty in reading and researching on your own, creating something with your hands versus relying on AI. AI is literally trying to extract everything out of us that makes us human. I could keep going, but I will leave it there. And I know this was a very heavy topic. Again, I do not want to be a Debbie Downer. But I do think we need to be aware, unfortunately. So I'm going to end this with a little curated comedy cleanse. Here's just a few TikToks that I found really funny lately and something to go look up if you have not seen it. Hold on. So somebody passed out behind Trump during a Trump rally. And as he's calling for a doctor, which apparently the only doctor in the room was Dr. Oz, which makes sense. Trump asks the people in the back, if you're listening, so like the audio people, please play Ave Maria by the opera. So as this person is, laying on the ground, having some sort of medical emergency, Ave Maria comes over the speakers, which is a very well-known, funeral song. And I just pictured this meme, like this is what the person was experiencing on the ground, hearing Ave Maria as they come to, am I dead? Okay, here's the first video. And to preface, this person is totally fine, no bones broken or anything. Okay, husband tries new neighborhood park. First of all, I don't know who designed this and why they would put this in a children's park. That is diabolical. Okay. Oh, not the slow-mo. People falling, oh my God, people falling makes me laugh so hard. And I feel really bad about it, but it just does. And of course, the best part was the comments. That's when I laughed the hardest. The comparison to the barrel monkey absolutely sent me at 10 o'clock at night. Okay, this next one, I don't want to get a copyright, so I'm just going to sing the song for you. And it's probably not going to be as funny, but you can go look up this TikTok. I've been singing this song all weekend, and I've just laughed at this TikTok a million different times. The way she locked in as soon as she saw herself, same queen, same. She's feeling cunt. She's more than proud. This is a 100% real sales call.
Please record your message.
Hi, Danny. I'm so sorry. Hi, this is from Equinox, and I have a complimentary session for you. So whenever you'd like to schedule, just give me a call back, and either one of my managers or I will answer, and we can help you. Oh, fuck. How do I delete this? No. Okay, well, I don't think I can delete it, so please just give me some human amount of grace, and if you never want to come in, I completely understand if you act like this message never existed. Thank you.
I have quite literally been there. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you feel a little bit more educated on the AI landscape. And I would be so thankful if you enjoyed this video, if you hit all the buttons, subscribe, share, like, comment, whatever else there is. Okay, I'll be back with more soon. Bye!